Okay, I got another gift box. This one is from Tim. Well, I combined it with stuff I got from Kentucky Flintworks. From a friend of mine sent me some slabs from Kentucky Flintworks of hornstone. This is separate from Tim's box. This is from Vernon. Thank you very much. This is part of the slab series I'll be working on. This is my favorite material, hornstone. In case you didn't know, it might look a lot like Georgetown, but it doesn't nap the same way. It naps better. Okay, in my view. All right, so the box from Tim, he sent this stuff. Let's see. He's from Pennsylvania. Okay. Now this stuff reminds me of railroad gravel, the kind of stuff we have around here, used for the railroads. I don't know what that material is. Well, I think he did say something. Pennsylvania metarrhylite. Yeah, otherwise known as man rock. Yep. And he sent me some Osage billets. Now they are developing some cracking, but it's still okay. And wood billets are interesting to use for spalling. I don't use them normally for thinning. But you can spall these out with wood. I'm assuming. I haven't tried this metarrhylite yet. Okay, that's one of the rock challenges coming up. Added to the list. This got an interesting edge on it. I don't know if I would actually nap this. I would probably just keep it as a wood chopper. You know what I mean? But we'll see. Okay. What do we nap today? Kevin says to nap the pretty stuff, so let's nap some of the pretty stuff. Okay, so let me see. Sometimes the pretty stuff is the hardest to nap. And slabs, everyone wants to see slabs because no one can nap them, and I understand why, because it's hard for me as well. They are a big pain in the wazoo. Okay? So don't feel bad if you buy some slabs and the first tap snaps the whole thing in half. That's very easy to do. This is already thin, right? So let's see. It's let's say 7 millimeter at the widest point. It is 63, so that's already 9-1, right? That's already as thin as the old guys would get them. That's the wall they were hitting in many cases, 9-1. So if you're hitting on the edge on a 9-1 and you break it and you're surprised, you don't understand ratios. Okay. It's very easy to snap this stuff at that particular ratio. Now this looks like pretty good stuff. And when it's pretty good stuff, it's easy to snap in half. When you start to nap a piece, you want to start at about a 3-1. You know what I mean? Let's see, what is this one? I mean, this is a good biface to start from. This is better than 3-to-1. Now let's just see what this is. 56 by 9. That's a 6-to-1, right? But you can start from 3-to-1 to 6-to-1. That's reasonable. If you start with a 9-to-1 right away, you are asking for trouble. A lot of trouble. So you've got to whittle it down so it's not as wide without too much fuss. I can already tell it's going to snap if I continue with the indirect percussion to make it more narrow. Okay, so when you get a slab, look at actually measure the ratio. If it's better than 6-to-1, don't be surprised that you will not have any success snapping it, because it's already as thin as what you would shoot for at the end, not at the beginning. Now, good material doesn't actually mean that it'll flake well with the pressure flaker or flake easily. It flakes well, but not easily. Let's see. I'm already starting to break a sweat, because not only am I nervous about the slab, but this pressure flaking is already starting to get on my nerves, even after just a few flakes. You want to get it more narrow than that. You want to get it 6-to-1. All right. Whatever you say, that's too small. I want to make a wide piece out of a wide slab. That's my goal. That's why I buy the slabs, so I can make a wide piece out of a wide slab. Now show me how to do it. Yeah. A lot of people want things that are not very practical to get or to demand. I'm sure we're all familiar with the concept, but when faced with the reality, we don't like it. We need someone to show us the impossible so that we feel better. Well, let's see if I can kind of show you the impossible. Try not to break this in 2 pieces. That's actually pretty good stuff. Probably heat treat, but I don't know. If it's not heat treat, it's excellent stuff. Even though it's not that easy to pressure flake. Yeah. I do slabs randomly, so I might pressure flake a little, percussion flake a little bit. I gotta take my jacket off. This is gonna be one of those things that is gonna raise the old anxiety level. Pretty high. Pretty high, pretty high. Let's see. This is the wrong one. What did I do with it? Okay. So I've already tested some with the pressure flaker. That's a royal pain. I got to get this to a better shape. Faster and easier. I don't want to burn myself out in the beginning by giving myself a cramp, so to speak, using the pressure flaker, and then by the time I get to the finished stage, I'm tired, aggravated, impatient, and subconsciously in a mood to snap the piece just to get it over with. and say, oh well, that solved that problem. You want to pace yourself so that you're not exhausted for the most important phase, which is the finishing phase, or stage, or whatever you want to call it. So the way I work slabs is randomly, but I also keep in mind the ratio so that I don't have something impossibly thin to begin with. Now, if you are a slab napper that does flake over grind, what you would do is you grind these edges, grind out the preform to almost the perfect shape, and then send in those long, thin, pretty flakes. You don't have to worry about too much stress on the piece, because what you're doing at the end is doing non-stressful flaking. But this percussion stuff to shape a regular non-ground slab is highly risky. And everyone wants to see, how do you make this risky operation not risky? Is there a way? No. There's not a way to make this risky operation not risky. It's always going to be risky, even for me, for anybody. Now, how do I keep it from snapping? Simple physics, don't shock it too much. Well, what if the only option is for me to shock it a lot? Well, then the only option for you is to snap it every time. You have to make sure you're not shocking the piece. It's the only way to avoid snapping it. The way you do that is to be careful with how much you remove. You don't really need to remove all that much at this stage. Now, these flakes are short, so you don't need a lot of force. Now, when it gets to be more, how should I say, when it gets to be closer to the final shape, and you've got a spot in the middle that you haven't cleared yet, you're going to need a lot of force. You're going to make sure that the ends are thin and that you're hitting in an area that is well prepared and not something that is unpredictable, both in terms of the material itself and in terms of the contour of the surface. If you're trying to power through little steps and little weird concavities and areas that are dicey, and you want to get to the middle, you have to look around, all the way around, and make sure you have the best angle of attack. All right, I got a phone call. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, as I was saying, you need to have the ends thinned down before you work on the middle. Most guys will have a spot in the middle that is not cleared, and that's where they end up snapping it, because they want to clear that spot. All right, so what I do is I try to get as close to I can to the right shape with the right proportions. You know, if you have to measure it, measure it. 6:1 is usually good as your end ratio with the thickness. If you start out better than that, what you're trying to do is thin down an already thin piece. You know what that means. That means mistakes are looming. It's a formula for mistakes, formula for step fractures. formula for failure. You can see the difference in consistency extremely well with this particular material. See how it reacts differently? When I flaked across, it should have been a nice clean flake, but it dove into this red color. It just dives right in. And then it comes back out, and this gray is very similar to this brown. But this red color is very glass-like, so it wants to flake on its own, basically at a different rate than the other areas. So, and it runs right through the middle, right? So when I go to flake and I start hitting that red stuff, it's going to start to dive into it and then pop out. So it's going to look like this, unless I flake with the flow of those veins in that direction. You know, flake in this direction, not across it, not perpendicular, but along with it. Okay, so yeah, the material is important. You don't have to worry about inconsistencies with glass. Glass is much easier to knap in a slab form, or anything consistent. Material needs to be consistent if you want consistent success. If it's not consistent, be prepared for lots of failures and weird stuff going on. Now, can you just nap around the edges and then send in flakes right now to clear off all those areas in the beginning, and then just trim it up and notch it, right? Can you do that? My answer is yes, if you want to fail, because what you're doing is you're thinning it down way too thin. Remember the width to thickness ratio. If you thin it now, it's going to be, you know, back to 9:1. You know, you can take off some width, but you start thinning it, it goes back to 9:1. You're already extremely thin compared to your width. You're asking for trouble. So what I do is I get it close to the final width, right? So I don't have so far to travel, and the width to thickness ratio is more robust. It's not as thin. The more robust it is, the harder it is to snap it in half. So I'm thinning down the tip, trying to. It's always a gamble because it is thin in the middle. It can snap while you're thinning the tip. Yeah, pressure flaking does do a little bit better job as far as risk. Not as much risk with pressure flakers. I could be thinning this tip with pressure, but I'm trying to make it so that I'm trying to make the platforms easy to work with, you know, fairly well isolated. You don't need to isolate too much with indirect percussion, but isolating does help to reduce the amount of shock. I still do opportunistic flakes for the most part, but I try to isolate so that I don't shock the piece. Okay. See, I isolated that right there. I hit it, but it didn't go. Which means I need to hit it harder, which means I'm risking the breakage. See, the platform was pretty well isolated. This one is here too. But even so, it's hard to judge whether it'll go or not. Right? So when I say that try to make the platforms easy to work with, it's hard to know if they're going to be easy to work with. It's just experience and getting to know the stone. I'm lowering the edge, probably thinking about it too much, but oh well. Yeah, when I get it zoomed in like this, it's hard to stay in the frame. Low platform, fairly well isolated. It seems to respond well. Alright, so when it gets tricky, I push on that little platform. Yeah, it naps well. Doesn't remove too much of the edge when you try to remove a flake. That's what I mean by it naps well. Not like some other material, like the one I was doing in a previous video, where it would remove a lot of the edge. Alright, I took a little bit more time than I normally would on that tip. Okay, so I'm gonna remove this mass here, but I'm gonna thin down the base and the tip first. That focus is not good today. So yeah, pretty random. The red and brown stuff, definitely different consistency. Which makes the operation unpredictable. Wild Horse Jasper. Yeah, as long as that vein of red is not too thick, it seems to nap through it okay. But you can see it's already starting to dive in there. See how I hit that flake? And it started to dive in. So if I go perpendicular to it, it's going to dive in here too. We'll see. We'll see if I'm smart enough to know which direction to flake once I get to those areas. I'll bet you I'll forget and then mess it up. Some of you guys would already have done the middle by this point, by this stage, right? You would already try to shoot across into the middle. And you would have a really, really thin point right now. And then trying to work miracles with it when it's extremely thin. It's like napping a thin flake. Which, surprise, surprise, people want me to nap those also. How do I nap thin, really thin flakes? Same deal. You get more narrow so that the width to thickness ratio is better and more robust. All right, I don't know what I'm going to make from it yet. I want to see if I can just get the flakes to travel. I can get them to travel on the other material, just not on the red. On the red, it wants to dive. If I do a kirk, I can cut that off, make a flat bottom. That way I don't have to deal with that red stuff at the bottom. Yikes. I don't know why that didn't go. A little bit better. It's kind of hard to go with the flow when you need to drive a flake in the other direction. You know, I said I was going to go with the flow of these red veins, but I keep napping across the other way. We'll just see how it goes. If I think about it more, I might be able to get it done. But too much thinking is not good. Because you want a lot of this to be subconscious. Because that's where the skill is. Skill is hiding in the subconscious. So you want to get the subconscious very skillful. And you think about it too much and you don't allow that skill to come out. You suppress the subconscious when you think about it too much. So, let's see. I'm going to go by memory. It's not going to be exact proportions. I'm going to make the excuse that this is preliminary notching for the notches. Preliminary thinning for the notches. I'm trying to go with the flow. But it's already not looking correct as far as the shape. Okay, that was pretty good. As far as the flake goes. Removed a lot of the surface without too many issues. You still see a lot of it right there, but that's it for this side. The thinner I can go with the flakes, the better. So I don't get it too thin in cross section. But I want to go this way with it, but that's the wrong way. I need to go this way so I can go with the flow of the veins. Yeah, it's a long shot. Oh well. Okay, so I took a chance and it looks okay, I suppose. I can clean that up. I tried to dive in like I was saying, but it looks like it's not too bad. Let's just hope it doesn't interfere with our napping on the other side. Because if we got two of those dives that want to meet each other, it gets really thin and it'll break right there. Let's see, which side, what symmetry do I want here? Do I want to make it shorter and get rid of the... If I get rid of the bottom, I can make it symmetrical, or I can take an indentation on this side and make it symmetrical that way. It's always safer to make it shorter. But to do a kirk, it's got side notches. The barbs come down pretty far, so I think I'm a little bit too long. Oh, that looks ugly. All right, so now I got to concentrate on flaking this side. Let's see, that's about 6. If it's greater than 36 millimeters, it's really wide. Yeah, it's like 40. It's like 7 to 1, almost 7 to 1. Really thin, but it's not unmanageable. It can be managed at that thickness. I can start driving in reasonably long flakes without too much risk of snappage. Snappage and halfage. Well, that didn't work very well. That was supposed to travel, not stop right there. It's stopping right right close to where I want to notch it. Gee, that was a surprise. It broke right at the vein. Let's see. Yep. It is a challenge. Because I'm not just worried about thickness. With a slab, you got to worry about removing the original surface. You worry about aesthetics as well. You got to remove the original surface, the tool marks, where it looks dumb. Now you can be all mathematical about it and calculate the average run of your flakes and see how narrow you need to be to give yourself a good chance of running flakes all the way across to catch those areas that need to be removed. But although I've taken lots of math courses and I'm a mathematical type person, I don't really like doing that kind of math. Too much thinking. The kind of math that's actually too much thinking. So yeah, randomly is okay, but I know it aggravates a lot of people. Because random is hard to teach. Random flaking is a hard thing to teach. Because everyone's going to be doing it differently. It's not like flake over grind where it's a systematic approach. I'm just attacking this randomly, hoping that I'll finally be able to get to that center part without too much difficulty. see that spot right in the middle where everyone has trouble. Right here. You can try to go for that in the beginning, maybe by flaking from the base. But of course, you risk snapping the whole thing. Very high risk snapping the whole thing. But I think I'm going to do it right now before it gets too thin in this area. I'm going to try to send in a few flakes to see if I can clear a good portion of that off. And besides, I'll be going with the flow of the red veins, kind of, sort of. So I've already determined that's the strategy for the red veins. All right, the edge looks okay. All right, very risky. I'm not going to lie to you, this is risky. All right. Just let the subconscious take over and see if it'll do it. See if the stone will do it and the subconscious will do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I might be able to travel that, or create a ridge to travel in. All right. It didn't do it, but I think I can get it from the other side. So we'll continue on the next segment.